Welcome to Mostly Minutia. I'm Colleen Lindell. This is episode 33, Jack Summers, Marine Corps Captain, Part 2. So last week I released the first part of this episode, and if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, that's okay. I think you'll be able to jump in here just fine and still get a great understanding of who Jack Summers is. Part 1 was like a Marine Corps 101. Basically, it was me asking Jack tons of questions about the Marine Corps. And we also talked about Jack's life, where he's from, the family he grew up in, and how he got into the Marine Corps, all the way up to his deployment to Afghanistan. And in this episode, we talk about Jack's life post-Afghanistan. Just a little info on Jack. Jack Summers is a Marine Corps captain. He entered the Marines in 2006. In 2010, he was deployed to Afghanistan and shortly after returning began to have seizures. Jack became medically separated from the Marine Corps in 2012, and he is the creator of Relobase. Relobase is an app that helps servicemen and women to relocate. Every year, approximately 1.3 million service people and their families relocate. Typically, there is a person called a family readiness officer that is assigned to each battalion. A battalion is about 500 people. The family readiness officer is in charge of the send-off and the receival of new service people, and between the two, they are overwhelmed in such a way that leaves servicemen and women to figure much of their relocation on their own. And Jack's app is changing all of this. Relobase helps each service person find places to live, grocery stores to shop, down to doctors and dentists to care for their aches and pains. Just a little note, at the end of part 1, we left off with me asking Jack what his thoughts are on video games depicting war and the military. He replied with, "It's a slippery slope because there are no true consequences. It gives you the feeling of knowing how to kick down a door and the feeling of arriving in person, but without the true consequences." The beginning of part 2 is a continuation of that conversation, and we are talking about drones and drone operators. Enjoy Jack Summers, Marine Corps Captain, Part 2.
Yeah, I didn't really get into why, how they're used in the military. Like
are they?
Drone operators.
Oh.
The controller setups. I don't know this firsthand, but I know it just through, a degree of separation with folks who are drone pilots that they almost set it up. And I think there's videos online. They almost set it up like a video game controller.
Right.
To basically detach you. It's this bridge between reality and non-reality or whatever.
Yeah, it's like virtual reality.
Yeah, so it's like you still feel like you're playing a video game, but it's actually real. Mm-hmm.
It's actually scary.
Yeah.
And the way you said that sounded scary.
Yeah, it is.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, it's also strange because you've been trained in to be very hands-on, and that is totally hands-off.
It is. Yeah.
It's not appearing in person.
No. So they're once again detaching, from before where I said people become desensitized and very comfortable with the idea of combat, the idea of close quarters battle and death. Mm-hmm. But yet the real consequences are never felt. You feel like you understand, but you really have no idea. Mm-hmm. And that same detachment is it's kind of mirrored on the side of drone pilots because they're doing some incredible things, but let's call a spade. They're having a huge impact on the battlefield, and that often results in loss of life. And so to protect some of our pilots, they can create this kind of mirage that it's like a video game. Have the controller be like a video game that these guys have used before when they were sitting in their basement with their best friends,
right,
playing, a 24-hour session of Halo, eating pizza and eating gummy bears. I don't know what they do, but whatever.
I think that's pretty close.
Yeah. So, if you produce that same environment, it's intelligent. It's a smart design to get them to feel like they're in their basement.
Yeah, it's familiar.
Exactly.
So, just going back to, so you said that you came back from Afghanistan, and then you said you became separated in 2012.
Yeah.
from the Marines.
Yeah. December.
What does separated mean?
So that was the end of my active duty service. So, you go from active duty. Typically, when you separate from active duty service, you then go into an inactive duty or a reserve unit. Mm-hmm. Not to bore any of our listeners, but a reserve is you're still part of the fighting force. There's about 1.3 million active duty service members. There's just over 800,000 reservists. And then there's a whole pool of folks that are inactive, that are veterans, that if necessary, these are like, active duty, go fight. If we need more people, reserve, go reinforce. If we need even more people, then we go to the inactive duty. We go to the veterans, essentially, but that have been released in the last 5 years. I think it is 4 or 5 years. So when I separated end of 2012, that was the Marine Corps basically saying, hey, you're no longer an employee of ours, And
can you tell me what led up to that? Because you had said that you would have stayed on longer with the Marines.
Yeah.
That was your plan.
Yeah, that was my plan. So I came back from that deployment in Afghanistan, and that was October 1st, 2010. Then November 26th or whatever it was Thanksgiving of that year, I went back to Chicago, did our annual turkey trot. I was severely hungover, but as was my entire family.
But you made it. You made
it.
Yeah,
we made it. It was like a turkey roll. I mean, we were not running. But, in this case, for me, I was in really good shape, and I wanted to get out there and, run and do my thing. And it was also the first time that I had seen some folks from my hometown since I had deployed twice. And certainly most interestingly to a lot of folks was my Afghanistan deployment. The turkey trot probably started at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or something, way too early. Mind you, Trout Valley, you need to change that. We were too hungover to run then. But
no, they know that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Why.
Yeah, it's a deterrent. You won't get me. So we beat the system. We arrived. And so I go out and I run this turkey trot, this 5K. And I get done with the turkey trot. And I remember it was this strange feeling where I just didn't know what was going on. I remember crossing the finish line and kind of being in a haze and dazed and not really sure about where I was or what I was doing. And it was I didn't know what the heck was going on. And I was just sitting, I was standing there and kind of huffing and puffing, trying to figure out where I was and what I was doing and why I was there at all. And people started walking up to me and they started saying, "Hey, Jack, it's so good to see you. How are you doing? How's your deployment?" And I remember being like, "What deployment? What are they talking about? Why are they asking me these questions? I have no idea." And so I just kept answering. It was fine. I kept just being just get it. I knew something. I knew who I was, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But I thought that if I just didn't do much, I would get by. I would pass this test. Slowly over the next 10 minutes, things started coming together. I started, remembering, okay, hey, I just deployed. I was in Afghanistan. My platoon was called Outlaw. I started remembering these details. So that was the first seizure that I had. And it's called an absent seizure or Todd seizure. You don't lose consciousness. You lose your awareness. It's like you're waking up on a different planet. For 10, 15, 20 minutes, you just don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I had a couple more of these absent seizures over the next 6 or 8 months. And one time, I felt like a sack of potatoes in the kitchen. I woke up and my roommates were just standing over me and kind of giving me the weird eye, not knowing what was going on. And I was giving them the weird eye right back, being like, "Why are you guys looking at me?" They're like, "Dude, what is going on with you?" And then I had another one where I knew that I had it. I had no idea. I was in my apartment once again, and I looked at my friend Travis Templeton, and I just remember being like, I don't know who he is, but I know that I know who he is somehow, and I can trust him. And I remember being like, hey, I just had a seizure, and I've got to lay down. And I went and lay down for like 15 minutes, and you get really tired. And I had another one that I was running in San Clemente, California, running on the same street that I had run on, 100 times before. And I'm running, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I had no idea where I was, no clue what I was doing, why I was running, if I was running from something or someone. And I was just like looking around, and I probably looked like a crazy man because I just had no idea what was going on. And then finally, like, I started figuring out. I remember I saw the street sign, and I was like, I know that street. I don't know why I know that street, but I know that street. And I just kept going, and finally like figured out where I was, and I ended up like just running home. And so I had these seizures, but I hid them. I didn't report them because I'm planning to go back to Afghanistan. I'm now in an advisor role. I'm with my best friends training. I'm with the best Marines that I've had to date. So I didn't report them, didn't say anything. And it's maybe September 2011. We're in our final training exercise in 29 Palms. The first day we're there, for some reason we woke up at like 4:30 in the morning. I started getting ready, and that's when I had my first grand mal seizure. I guess I just kind of like slumped over and just screamed like a wild man, and then just cocked back and fell, and a couple of my Marines caught me. And so that grand mal I couldn't hide. I knew that I had an issue. I knew that there was a problem, but I couldn't deploy. And that was like the biggest problem to me. That's what was so upsetting. And once again, my CO, Captain Moore, again, he basically gave me the advice, like, go grab a bottle of Jack Daniels, take 24 hours, find the bottom of it, and then pick your head up and keep moving forward. Like, don't feel sorry for yourself. You don't have time to do that. And I was like, roger that. So then I was in charge of the remained behind element. I was basically a company commander. So I had about 150 guys, and it was it was awesome because these guys were some, admin SEP guys. They weren't, medical separation. There was a variety of reasons why most would have probably just sat back and just like let them do their thing. But I was pretty set on building as solid of a company as I could. And so I trained them. We trained really hard. The group was fantastic. They became like the standard on Camp Pendleton, and maybe even at a larger level for remained behind element operations, exercises, processes, everything. I mean, we became like the unit that people were like, wow, those guys are not supposed to be that good, and they are that good. And so I heard a little rumor that there was another opportunity to deploy to Afghanistan, and I just had to get my name in the hat. So my guys are forward deployed to Afghanistan. I've got a company, remained behind element, it's called RBE, that I'm in charge of. And I hear through the rumor mill that there's this element who's going to be deploying in Afghanistan in like 4 or 5 months. And they need somebody that is basically like me. I had all the training. I was going to deploy to Afghanistan as an advisor. This unit is going to deploy to Afghanistan as advisors. I'm like, this is perfect. At that point, I'm on medication. I'm convinced that it's a fluke. I know that I have problems. Like, I know that I had multiple seizures, but like this grand mal, I was like, this is a fluke. I know that this unit is going to be deploying and they're looking for people. I put my name out there and somehow I get selected and I get on to this roster. And I'm like, yes. I'm going to be going back, like all my training, this is what it led up to. And so at that point, to convince myself that this was a fluke, I started running. I ran a triathlon. I ran just a sprint tri, but it was like to prove that I could do this. And then I ran an Olympic, and I would like go out to the ocean and basically like swim 100 meters out into the ocean by myself. I would just swim in the ocean, just back and forth, and was just like testing. I was just testing myself. Like I needed to know that this was a fluke. Although I had those other issues, the other seizures, I wanted to make sure that it was just those, and that this thing was just like, it was the anomaly. And up to this point, I had every reason to believe that. Like I had never had a grand mal seizure before. No history of seizures. I can't join the Marine Corps if I do have history of seizures. So I'm sitting there saying this must have just been lack of electrolytes, tired, you know, all of my tests were normal. So there was nothing that they were like, oh my gosh, we don't
like,
know.
There's a brain
we
tumor.
Don't, yeah, exactly.
Like
they
that.
were exactly. They just said, we don't know. We don't have an answer for you. We're not sure what caused this. I was like, great. That's what I want to hear. So I did these tries, and I start preparing to deploy to Afghanistan with this new unit. And it was awesome because I had done most of the training. I was pretty much prepped to deploy when I met up with these guys. And a lot of them had never been to Afghanistan. They hadn't gone through this advisor training. So I'm like, I can be like the man here, you know, I can be like the guy. And, you know, maybe a month and a half before we were planning to deploy, I'm working out with my guys. The whole unit is there, and I have another grand mal seizure. And so that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. Once you have that second grand mal, then the Marine Corps, the military, any branch says, hey, that's it. Yeah. And that seizure was ironically enough on Friday the 13th of January. Yeah.
Was that in 2011?
That was January 2012.
Okay.
And all in all, I've had 10 or 12. I think we talked about it. 10 or 12 seizures. I had another one, on an airplane right when we landed. I had a grand mal seizure, and sorry if any listener was by me at that point because I puked all over everybody. It was no good. But I had another seizure there, and then I had another seizure. I had 2 seizures. My most recent one were in October, so I'm almost on a year, which is good.
Now they call it, you said medically separated? Or
yeah.
Since that's happened, it seems like you've had such an explosion of other opportunities that have come into your life, like that you could have never even planned for. And I wanted to ask you, do you have any idea of what you think might have caused? Because you said that you never had any history of seizures, like growing up.
Yep. I mean, I do. My non-medical understanding or thoughts on it is that it was probably not something that we were exposed to. More likely something that we were given as like a vaccination. I haven't been given an answer. The VA has obviously, they have been helping me through this ever since I separated in the end of 2012. However, I don't know what caused these seizures, what continues to cause these seizures. I didn't have epilepsy before I joined. I know that. I know that the other Marines that I have in my unit and the 7 or 8 Marines that I now have collectively that I'm in touch with, they didn't have epilepsy before they joined either. So it seems awfully coincidental, perhaps too coincidental, to be something that are all unrelated events. That seems a little strange to me. I'm really curious to see how the VA, what their course of action is to find us answers. I think the longer that it goes on, the more people are going to bring this forward because it totally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm super fortunate. It also changed it in an amazing way. Like you said, I've had just some of the best opportunities that I've ever been given or ever had in my life have all occurred after I separated. So I'm forever thankful and indebted to the Marine Corps. However, taking 2,500 milligrams of Depakote every day takes a toll in so many different ways. I mean, not only am I, absolutely exhausted and just, fighting to get through a lot of normal situations that I try to put on a happy face, and I do. And this is not look at me, he's doing more than, it's just to say the medication is not fun to take. And it's not something that I would do voluntarily if not required. So, I hope that they do I hope that they give us a reason.
Yeah.
I hope that a solution or an answer comes of this. When it does, it'll put us all, at ease. Like, I want to know why at 28 years old I was just randomly diagnosed with epilepsy, and why these other guys have, Nick Bengtson, who is in my unit of those 29 guys. I mean, he's had a ton of seizures too, and he's, one of the guys that's in this group. It's not something that we're proud of, and it's something that we just kind of have to fight through.
Was there anything that you guys were around prior to this happening? Like anything that you were, I don't know, like exposed to, or like, were you around anything right before this happened?
Nothing that I can think of. And I've, I certainly, folks have asked me, what do you think it was?
Yeah.
And were you exposed to something, like some chemical agent or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was never personally, there's nothing that comes to mind. Nothing that was so abnormal or, strange that I was like, oh my gosh, like I need my gas mask, or like, boo, something's different. It was always pretty much the same general experiences, in combat. So some of the vaccinations that we took, those were kind of strange though. Like what I was exposed to versus what I may have consumed, two different. And it's no secret that the anthrax vaccination, Gulf War disease or syndrome has caused a lot of folks seizures and a variety of different diseases and conditions. And these anti-malaria pills, we took doxycycline. Doxycycline is a really interesting one too, because it's a hot blue pill. I mean, it looks like something, you take and go to a rave with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like house music style hot blue pill. And if my memory serves me correctly, you would take it 15 days before you deploy, and then take it the first 15 days of your deployment. So it's a 30-day cycle, but there's basically 2 phases. We were told that taking these pills would give us crazy dreams. I mean, it was like you were hallucinating, like these types of really, really out there, freaky, messed up things that you just don't have normally. If you did, you would be like, oh my gosh, I had a terrible, like worst nightmare ever.
Right.
And these things would happen regularly, but it was just while you were taking this medication, which always seemed strange to us. But, at that point, we were looking to fight. We were trained to fight.
Yeah.
We weren't going to let some pills hold us back. You know?
Well, and everyone was taking them, so you're like, oh, we're just having these
exactly
because we're all taking
exactly.
This
and I've never pointed my finger at anyone, especially any organization, being like, oh my gosh, you were trying to get us sick. Of course not. Like these pills are being taken to protect us. However, I look at the facts, and the facts are 7 or 8 service members that are veterans that I have personally been contacted by have been diagnosed with epilepsy after they joined the military. And 3 or 4 of us were in the same unit of like 29 dudes. Something's up. Something's interesting about it. I think it's certainly worth looking into. But once again, I think all in due time. And I know that the VA is eager to find that answer and eager to get us answers to our questions.
Yeah, you do feel that way?
I do. I'm on the outside. I think it's always good to apply a little pressure, and with that in mind, I'm applying some pressure. So,
How has the trajectory of your life changed? Because, you've told me about some really cool things that have happened to you since this. Can you talk about, like, just share with the listeners some of the things that have happened now in your life?
Yeah. So since separating end of 2012, I moved up to Santa Monica, and at that point really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I was like, hey, I have some time. I want to just get out there. I want to listen again. I need to listen to like what the opportunities are. Where are they? I applied to a position to be a fit camp instructor and was fortunate enough selected to be a fit camp instructor. Then I got my real estate salesperson's license, pretty much just to like have it and be able to learn on the real estate side. I worked at a private development company called Contact Development, and I did a Marine Corps commercial in 2012. You kind of know this story, but the director on the commercial, super cool guy, Jimmy Matloss. It's an officer's commercial, recruiting. I still remember it. I'm sitting there under the tent, and I've got a dip in, and I'm like, hanging out with my buddies and, the other Marines, and we're just talking. And all of a sudden I hear a, Captain Jack! And I'm like, oh, guys, I got to go. Like, I got to go advise over here. And, like, jump in on set, which was super amazing. Awesome opportunity. Jack, what do you think about this? And I'll be like, oh, in combat situation might be like this. Training situation might be like this. And they're like, okay, cool. Boom. Like, let's do that. All of a sudden, like, they asked me a few more times about, like, what it would be like or how it should look or, where should this guy be? Where should that guy be? From that, I moved up to Santa Monica. The same guy, Jimmy, hits me up and he's like, hey, I told him I was in town, moved up here. And he's like, oh, that's great. You should get into acting. And I was like, no, not really my thing. He's like, okay, cool. Just think about it. I'm like, okay. And so then like a month later, we reconnected, told him what's going on. He's like, seriously, have you thought about acting? I think you should do it. Military advising is a really big deal. Like there's a lot of opportunity. I'm like, I know, I'm just like not quite there. It's not really my thing. And he's like, okay, just think about it. I'm like, okay. Talk to him a couple months later. He's like, hey, have you thought about acting? I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I'm doing it. And so I'm like, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's do it. So I applied to 2 talent agencies, and one of the agencies got back to me like pretty quickly and was like, yeah, you can totally come on board. It was called Combat Casting. It was an all veteran casting agency. Any weapons handling, weapons manipulations, tactical movement, weapons employment, like pretty much that's my gig. Especially at that time, I'm fresh out of the infantry in the Marine Corps as a captain. Like that's my jam. I can do those things. And so I get in, and sure enough, I get casted in this feature film. I can't remember what it was called. Like, oh, I should remember it. It was like, Icebreaker or something like that, or like, frozen ice, frozen. I don't know, whatever. So yeah.
Should I look you up on IMDb? Really
yeah, quick? I think it's under Jack Summer for some reason. I think they spelled my name wrong, but yeah, okay. I am there. And so it turns out that it's Captain America 2. And so,
it was under a guise.
Yeah, they didn't tell us what the movie was called until we basically got there. I showed up and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for whatever, frozen popsicle or something. I don't know. And they're like, oh, you mean Captain America 2? I'm like, sure. And so there it is. So I'm in Captain America 2. I ended up, acting and, I was extra with special abilities, met a ton of awesome guys. Subsequently was then casted in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and got my, was whatever. I didn't pay to get my SAG card, but like was SAG nominated or whatever it is. And if you ever see Captain America 2, the elevator scene where all the agents, like where Captain America like beats the crap out of all the folks in the elevator, as soon as it opens, I'm the guy right in the middle, right in the front. I get down kind of on a knee and I have my weapon like pointed straight at Captain America 2. I'm like one of the SWAT agents. Check it out. So yeah, and did that. And then I worked harder to then focus on being a real estate agent. And this is like 2014 then it takes me to. And that's really where Relobase and the idea of continuing to serve the military community became very clear to me.
So you figured out that you still wanted to serve in some way. It's like you kind of created a way for you, or you found a way to keep serving. You like invented a way to keep serving.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's awesome. It's humbling to hear. I knew when I realized just how many service members were moving every year, when I realized that a third of the military was moving every year and that it was costing them $6,700, 25% of their annual salary. And the resources that they had to relocate were just the resources I had, which were like nothing. Mm-hmm. You really had to like figure it out on your own, do all of your own research. When I realized that this didn't just happen to me and my Marines, or my Marines and me, when I realized that it was happening across the board to a third of the military every year.
Let's just wait for just a second.
Is that a helicopter? Or is that
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like way overpowering. Like I'll settle for small planes that go over, but I can't have it steal your thunder, which is funny because I was just thinking, well, let's just back up for a second. Back to, I was just saying that you like invented a way for you to keep serving the military. I would think somebody who was planning on staying on in the Marines longer and had such a change in the life trajectory could take a different route and be like bitter, they could choose other things. But Jack, it seems like nobody is going to steal your thunder. Like it seems like you own your own joy, your own happiness, and that you figure out your own way to do things. And I find it really interesting that you chose the higher road, even though you were medically separated and figuring things out like, okay, I'm going to be an actor. It's not even a real thing, like you were doing real things, like helping in a real way before, and being open to this other path, even being open to real estate, and then allowing those thoughts to kind of bounce around in your head about, realizing that you still want to help in some way, and that this is one way that you can help. Yeah. I find that very interesting.
Well, thank you. And once again, it's an amazing network. And I'll say that, and we've talked about this before, and folks have asked me about my transition, from active duty to civilian. And most, I think they look at it and say, wow, that's such a change. You went from basically the world is your oyster to you have epilepsy and you need to get out of the Marine Corps. And at that level, it's drastic and it's dramatic and it's difficult. I definitely knew that was one way I could look at it. Mm-hmm. But I knew the other way I could look at it was, hey, I don't have an option. I can't stay in. I don't have to worry about whether I should or I shouldn't. Mm-hmm. Like that burden has been removed. That issue that I may think about in 20, 10, 5 years, whatever it might be, about whether I should have separated is gone. I was told what to do. Mm-hmm. So I knew that at that point, it was up to me to determine what the next chapter was. Mm-hmm. I tried to do my best. I loved my job. Nobody who worked with me or who saw me would not tell you that I smiled probably more than any other officer they've ever met. Mm-hmm. That's just like, I loved being a Marine. It's a dream job. But I also knew that it would end one day. I didn't know how, but I knew for certain that I would not be a Marine my entire life. Mm-hmm. That at a point, sometime, it would come to an end. I really did. I knew that, and I used that to my advantage. I used it to be the best Marine that I could be until somebody was better than me and could do my job better, and then they deserved the job. And that's only reason why I was there. It's the only reason why I had a job is because they enlisted Marine Corps. And so when I knew that I was getting out, sure, I was bummed, but I knew it was on me. Like, this was my opportunity. It was a new opportunity. You know, like we were talking about kind of when we weren't live is, you know, when shit hits the fan, you know, people act different. You have some folks that may really react hysterically, or they're out of their mind kind of. What we call it is they go internal. They can't pull the facts and figures and use that emotional intelligence to produce a solid course of action. And then there's other people that they calm in those places or those situations. It's almost like soothing to know that you can contribute right now. Like, the next step is the only thing you can worry about. Like, whatever happened that got you to this point has already happened. So that next step, that's the big one. That's the redeeming moment. And to say, you know, what we were talking about earlier is this was just that moment for me. You know, like, rather than acting hysterically because I'm getting pushed out of the Marine Corps, I was like, dude, let's just freaking rock. Like, let's just crush it. It is what it is. I can't do anything about that. It's gone. I need to ready myself, and I need to come up with the best course of action. I still strive to do that. You know, it's never over. Like, there's always a new chapter. There's always another opportunity. There's always another challenge. But with each one of those comes possibly the greatest opportunity to date in your life. And you need to be ready for that.
So was it when you were working in real estate that you started thinking about service men and women relocating, and like, how did that come about? Yeah.
So 2 times specifically on, well, one more general, the other one specific, but generally when I was in Marine, when I was active duty, I felt super confident, really comfortable advising my Marines on most subjects. Like, outside of garrison, like, I wouldn't tell them how to act in a bar. So I'd just be like, watch me, but don't do anything that I do, you know? But, you know, otherwise, if it was down to tactics or strategy or whatever it was, something, if it was related to execution or like training, I love that stuff. It's so much fun. So I generally and genuinely wanted to know as much as I could about those subjects, and so that I could help folks, and in turn they helped me too. And that's how I generally felt. But one topic that I never felt comfortable advising my Marines on was the relocation. I personally was commissioned and then relocated. I had recruiting in Coralville, Iowa, and then I was moved to Quantico, Virginia, and then I was moved to Camp Pendleton, and then deployed twice, and then was moved up to Santa Monica for my final, like, when I exited, and they move you then. And that was all in 5.5 years. You're moving around a lot. And some guys have done it many more times than I have in that same amount of time. You'd think I'd be pretty good at that, you know? Like, right. You think. Wrong. I was awful. Terrible. And I was single.
You were awful at relocating?
Terrible.
What do you mean by that?
I didn't know who to ask about, you know, what the surrounding areas look like, or where I should move to, where a junior officer should live, where 2-4, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines is located on Camp Pendleton. You know, just simple things like, where should I live? It can be a huge pain, and you don't have a lot of time to figure this all out. As a single service member, whatever, I'll make it work. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm not taking this bed with, I'll just like throw it out or something, you know? Or if I need to move to Camp Pendleton, I'll just like research the cities surrounding and like contact the property management company, go on Zillow, I'll Google restaurants and nightlife, I'll look on the base map, try to figure out what 2-4 is, think about where the gates are, what the travel times are, just basic stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's like my initial search. Mm-hmm. And just in that, I just described like probably 7 or 8 different websites that I would need to just do those initial searches.
Right.
So that seemed crazy to me because I'm like, dude, why don't I just have something that makes this easier? And no offense to the government, but this isn't exactly their space. Like, they don't covet the relocation. They are a logistics machine. Mm-hmm. They're training Marines and soldiers and airmen and sailors for combat.
The hospitality side is not their priority.
Yeah, they're not like, oh yeah, we definitely want you guys to stay at that hotel over that hotel, and oh yeah, this place has like a great continental breakfast and we're going to be all about it. Like, they don't care.
But you were saying there is somebody that's assigned to help people move, but those people are so overwhelmed because there's so many people. What was that position again?
Yeah, so the family readiness officer.
Family readiness officer.
So think about this. I mean, a third of the military, 650,000 service members are moving. Now, about 50% of those, just over, I think 55% are married. Of the married folks, you've got about 40 or 45% that have children. And these folks are moving all over the country, all over the world. So you've got 650, plus another 750 total with spouses and dependents. So now you're looking at, 1.3 million folks that are moving annually. This family readiness officer, God bless him, is one person who's responsible for typically one battalion. In the infantry side, a battalion is about 500 service members. So you've got another, 200 or 300 almost, or 275, whatever, that are married. And then of those, you've got children. So you've got, we'll just say 1,000 just to be safe. 1,000 service members, military spouses, and family members that this family readiness officer is responsible for ensuring their wellness. If the military spouse is looking for employment, like, not that he or she can exclusively work through this channel. Mm-hmm. They're obviously they are total go-getters and dominators, military spouses I'm talking about. So they'll go make it happen. But this family readiness officer, he or she is the unit's point of contact. And so this family readiness officer is like, okay, I'm trying to put together events, monthly events. I'm trying to host webinars or seminars or hiring opportunities for military spouses. I'm trying to make sure that all the information from the battalion is getting delivered to the families so that the families feel like they're included, which is that should be that's a job that 5 people should share. Mm-hmm. And this is in addition, this is a collateral duty. And so at the end of the day, this family readiness officer is not only responsible for these 1,000 folks and ensuring the wellness, but think a third of them are moving away from the unit. Mm-hmm. Well, that means a third are moving into the unit. So this family readiness officer is now not only responsible for the wellness of those folks that are staying at the unit, but he or she is responsible for the wellness, for the relocation of the service members and their families who are leaving the unit. Well, he or she is also responsible for the wellness of the individuals, the service members and families who are moving into the unit. So before you know it, this one person has duties and responsibilities that I would guess in the civilian sector would be delegated to probably 6 people. So that individual, like I said, my hat is off to family readiness officers. It's really a tough gig.
Yeah, I mean, what is their main goal? The family readiness officer. What are they supposed to do? Because it's not efficient, obviously.
Yeah.
It's too many people for them to keep track of. So what is their main goal? Just to give a great or a great send off and a great receival?
Yeah. with regards to the relocation, their job or their mission is to make the families feel comfortable.
Okay.
Welcome. Mm-hmm. What else? Where else can you start? You want to make them feel welcome. Well, if you want to make me feel welcome, then you're going to have to acknowledge the different pain points that I'm going through and encountering. Mm-hmm. And that is, where do I register my kids at for medical coverage? Where is the best childcare where I live? Because I need to start working, so I need to get my child or children in childcare immediately. Where are the best schools? Like, where is, off-base medical or dental? These are just a few of the questions that I would have, that I know that many military spouses who have children, they have these questions. Mm-hmm. They have so many tasks. They have so many responsibilities. And ultimately, like, this problem is part of why I produced Relobase. Like, it's not lack of effort or lack of ability by the family readiness officers. They're incredible. They're doing everything that they can. In my mind and in what I've seen, they just are not properly supported. And they make the best of it. Mm-hmm. But it's, the government's not in the relocation business.
Can you describe to me how Relobase works?
Yeah.
Like, because I actually downloaded it to my phone.
Cool.
I wanted to see if I could do it. And it was like, pick a base. And I was like,
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So Relobase, essentially it's, you set up a profile, you answer some basic onboarding questions, and it uses the information that you provide us. It then scrapes all of the different data that we pull from, which is basically like, imagine instead of you making 20 different Google searches, you give us the information, and you don't even say, this is what I would search. If you say that you have children, then Relobase acknowledges that you have children, and so these are some products and services that you're going to be interested in. And we actually deliver then where those products and services not just are, like, oh, of course, there's childcare in San Clemente, California.
Right.
But if you're looking in San Clemente, California, there might be great childcare there, but there might not be very good schools. And so what we're developing is the opportunity to apply values to childcare, to school systems, to nightlife, to drinking beer with friends, to going to the beach, whatever it is. Any of these tags that you like.
Right.
Relobase then is like, hey, dude, we totally get it. You like all these things. These are the highest priorities that we have given, or these values. These are the best 3 places to live for you. Here it is. Here's exactly what you need to do to live there. Mm-hmm. And so now you have a fully customized relocation blueprint. And it's not this one size fits all. Like, every family is unique. Every service member is unique. And the more that you tell us about you, if you like it quiet at night, or if you like to face the west so you see sunsets, whatever, you can get this granular so that things you start to see where you should live, not just where you can live. That's my kind of obsession with Relobase, is that we can reduce the cost, we can reduce the time. So the cost, our goal is to reduce, each service member's relocation by over 10%, which is $670. Average relocation is $6,700. So we want to save the service member, over almost $700 per relocation. And saving them cost, the financial burden, is a huge help. It would be a huge help if I were still moving myself. For anybody. It's a huge upfront burden. And with that, then the other thing was saving time. And this one is important because I was single. I'm single, and when I relocated, I didn't have, a family to think about, But over half of our military service members, they do. They have a spouse, or they have children, or both. And that's a huge, it's a huge problem that they run into, which is the relocation is bookended with extra work for the service member because they have to prep to leave their unit and get everything set for somebody to come in and take over a new position. So the turnover. And then at the end, at their arrival destination, they have to turn over with somebody else, which is going to take even more time. And so these military spouses are basically, they're given the responsibility of taking care of most of this stuff, most of the relocation. And I said, man, if I can reduce the time that they spend on this relocation, I can give them more time to be with their families. If that's reducing, stopping one divorce, or if that's, getting a family together one extra night a week before they relocate with like their friends and folks that are around, like, then it's all worth it. That's what I want to bring forward. That's what I want to grow. I mean, awareness about Relobase as a solution, but the problems are so real. They're affecting so many people, and you have to be obsessed about this to go for it. And I am. And that's why, I believe that this problem, it has to be solved.
Well, and it's interesting too that, it's not like people are just relocating once. It's built into their lives. So if it's going to be built into their lives, there might as well be a service that really helps them to accomplish it. Without making it so difficult. I can see how, like, as a single person, it's just annoying. It's like, okay, I'm going to prepare for this person to come in, and I'm going to prepare to leave now. And when I get there, I'm just going to see what happens. I'll just figure it out. And that works. But like, to mobilize a family over and over again, that's uprooting over and over. So I think it would be really cool to be able to have like a customized, like you were saying, you want to see the sunrise, or like you like to face the east or face the west or whatever. Those are like really small perks that can make life so much better.
Exactly. It's a natural progression. I mean, timing and technology allow this to happen. Our service members and their families, they're ready. They're looking. I mean, the folks that we've talked to, that we've brought onto the Relobase team, it's overwhelming, the response. And you start to see just how needed it is.
So people are using the app currently? And are you getting a lot of feedback on it? Are people?
I mean, right now we're operational at like 150 plus bases nationwide, as in we have the infrastructure to support military service members moving around those bases. But we have focused our efforts mostly on Southern California right now. We need to have the traction here to show that, boom, like this thing can work. One mistake that I think a lot of folks that have delivered products and services to the military, which has really upset me, is they know that service members and their families are limited on options and time, especially when it comes to the relocation. And so you get a lot of providers who want to take advantage of that compressed timeline and vulnerability. And that absolutely infuriates me. And I'm not only set on a mission to assist our service members, spouses, and their families, but I'm personally fixated on crushing providers who prey on our service members and their families when they're relocating. And when they know that they're vulnerable and they decide to pull crap about, oh yeah, like I'm a veteran, or I'm this or I'm that, and I can help you, whatever, and I don't care, like anybody who takes advantage of the community like that, then it becomes very personal to me. And that's part of definitely like what drives me, is the sooner that I can get this product to our active duty service members, military spouses, and their families, the more folks I can help, and the faster I can crush those providers that are taking advantage of our service members.
Jack, what are you doing currently to get the word out about Relobase? I mean, I know we're talking about it right now. You were saying something about military.com?
Yeah, so military.com is running, they ran an article last week. They're running a lot of like articles that we've already published, and they're repurposing them. So on military.com, you can go to either spousebuzz.com or military.com, and you can see articles written by Dee Maurer, who was our content producer for a long time. Shout out to Dee. She's awesome. Military spouse, totally gangster. And so right now, kind of working with that, I've sent emails out to, different folks, contacted other, news agencies, but in the way of like national level, really limited right now. I'm more focused on going to like Camp Pendleton and actually delivering a lot of our content to Southern California to just kind of get the word out there and start to grow the community and overall awareness.
That's like hand delivering.
Yeah.
That's like going
exactly
as the messenger and being
yes.
like, yeah, let me know how it works.
Exactly. Like delivering, I'll give another secret here is military. It's not about what you're going to do for them. It's what have you done? A lot of companies, I think, will approach the military and be like, or smaller units within the military and say like, hey, we're going to do this, but, if you guys can just all sign up for the app, or if you can, register on our subscriber list or whatever, or hey, can you do this, that, or the other, and then we'll give you something in return. You're like, dude, beat it. You have to go to these folks and say, this is what I've done. Up to this point, I have gotten 1,000 users. I've gotten this feedback. We've produced or have these, features and products available. This is what it does for you. This is the value add. Would you guys be willing to test it out for me? Over the next week or so, would you be willing to deliver this to 15 military spouses to have them test it for me? That is reasonable. In some ways. And you could even say like, hey, we'll do like, I'll bring some food and beer or wine, or, here's a, $10 Amazon gift card. We don't have a ton of money. So it's like doing something to at least show and give, appreciation for their time. I've gone on Camp Pendleton and spoken and, even gone to like the general's home and kind of briefed some of, not the general himself, he was gone, but briefed some of the high-level military spouses, family readiness officers, so on and so forth. So we're definitely growing our presence locally, which I think is the most important. Certainly to any listeners, if you have reason or would like me to come to Camp Pendleton or any other base in Southern California, certainly let me know, and I'd be happy to come down.
Mm-hmm. If people want to try Relobase, can people contact you? Or?
Yeah, I would definitely say, log on relobase.com. The app is like we're going in and out of under construction as we continue to refine it. So we haven't fully launched the app. You can find it in the App Store. But I recommend just the web-based version for now. You can definitely go on. It's like a directory of sorts as we continue to build. But you can contact me directly at jack@relobase.com, just RELOBASE, jack@relobase.com. If you have any ideas, if you have any stories, like we're interested in getting people to talk about their PCS horror stories. So like the worst relocation you've ever had. We're thinking about giving out some Amazon gift cards and kind of having a little bit of a raffle on like the worst story ever.
That's good.
If for any reason, or if this is just something that you're interested in and you see a unique way to contribute to our mission, or kind of partner with us in a beneficial way to our service members, please contact me. We're always interested in hearing, how we can better serve.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen.
A huge thank you to Jim Matlis for recommending Jack to me. Jim is a director and cinematographer based in Los Angeles. He has a remarkable knack for networking and bringing people together. And one day we were talking. I was telling him how I started this podcast and how I love interviewing people. And he said, you know who you should interview? You should interview Jack Summers. And here we are. Also, thank you so much to Jack for talking candidly with me, a perfect stranger, about his life for a little over 3 hours. If you're interested in hearing a bit more about Jack's story and possibly putting a face to the voice, there was a recent story done on Jack. It was done through a great resource, maketheconnection.net, which is an online support resource designed to connect veterans, their family members and friends, and other supporters with information and solutions to issues affecting their lives. There are over 400 veteran stories on maketheconnection.net. You can find Jack's story at maketheconnection.net/stories/675, or you can find the link to Jack's story in this episode's description, which you can find on the device where you're currently listening to this episode. Literally, if you just scroll down in the description of this episode, you will find all sorts of links on topics discussed during this episode. But I also highly suggest just going to maketheconnection.net and perusing their site, especially if you are a veteran. The site is incredibly user-friendly. It has distinct drop-down menus highlighting signs and symptoms, life experiences, and conditions. So let's say you are a veteran struggling with bipolar, and you've had the life experience of a death of a friend. There are options specifically for you and stories of veterans who've recovered from these very experiences. Or let's say you're having any number of symptoms, chronic pain, eating problems, feeling on edge, feelings of hopelessness, flashbacks, gambling, noise or light irritation, nightmares, loss of interest, relationship problems. These are actual symptoms on their site that you can click on and find stories that correlate with the symptoms and resources to help surrounding that very symptom. And again, if you are a service person and want to try Relobase, you can contact Jack at relobase.com. That's relobase.com. Lastly, big, huge shout out to Joe Doherty. Joe is a frequent listener of the Mostly Minutia podcast, and Joe has just started his own podcast, and it is so good. It's called The BMX in Our Blood, and his first episode is great. It's a long-form interview with the first ever trans BMXer, Chelsea Godin, and it is superb. Joe is a huge supporter of BMX. He holds fundraisers surrounding BMX, and he loves the BMX community. And if you love BMX, or you just simply love people, you'll really enjoy his show. I'm very, very proud of him. He's a very good interviewer, and props to him for taking a jump, every pun intended, and just seeing where it's going to take him. Also, another huge shout out to Seth Stoltnow. Seth is a good friend of mine who is in school at the University of North Dakota, and UND has just crowned him head sound engineer of the Dakota Student Podcast. And you can find the BMX in Our Blood as well as Dakota Student Podcast on iTunes, or as Apple has liked for us to start saying, on your Apple Podcast app on your Apple device. Lastly, and I love saying this, the cover art for the Mostly Minutia podcast is an actual painting, handmade by the whimsical and fortuitous Evah Fan. She really is just so wonderfully talented, and the cover art for my show is really just a taste of her other creations. It is an hors d'oeuvre, or an amuse-bouche. You can find all musings by Evah at evahfan.com. This episode of Mostly Minutia was recorded on location at Epiphany Space in Hollywood, California. Epiphany Space is a nonprofit co-working space with quaint rooms, including an outdoor garden and complimentary espresso. To learn more about daily rates, renting a room, and membership, go to epiphanyspace.com.